What's the most dangerous number in the world?
One good month.
One great trade.
One strategy that worked through one very specific market condition.
One mentor whose approach you adopted completely. One belief about how markets move that you have never, ever seriously questioned.
See, the number one is by far the most dangerous number in trading. And it's not because singular things can't be valuable. It's because the mind that rests on one, well, it's stopped building. And a trader who has stopped building has started declining, whether they know it yet or not. To really understand why the number one is so dangerous, we have to go back in time. We're going back to World War II for a brilliant story about survival and the data that you can't see. Okay, so picture this. It's the 1940s. The U.S. military brings in this genius mathematician named Abraham Wald. They have one job for him: figure out where to add armor to their planes to help more of them survive their missions. The only data he had to work with? The bullet holes on the planes that actually made it back home.
So, let me ask you. You're looking at these planes that returned, and they're all shot up in certain areas. Where do you put the extra armor? Seems pretty obvious, right?
Now, the knee-jerk reaction, the obvious answer, was to reinforce the places with the most damage. But Wald told them to do the exact opposite. He said, armor the areas with no damage at all. Why? Why would he say that? Because the bullet holes they were seeing were on the planes that survived. That means, by definition, that damage wasn't fatal. The spots with no damage on the returning planes, the engines, the cockpit, those were the places where, if a plane got hit, it never came home. The most important data wasn't in the room. It was completely invisible. And that story perfectly illustrates this powerful, hidden bias that quietly messes with almost every decision we make. It's called survivorship bias. It's this logical trap we fall into where we focus only on the winners, the success stories, the things that made it through. And we completely forget about all the failures because, well, they're not around for us to study. So let's bring this right back to our world. That one strategy you love so much, that's the plane that came back. You have zero data on all the other people who tried similar things and blew up their accounts. That mentor you follow, they might have succeeded in a market that looks nothing like today's. And that one huge trade that made you feel like a genius, it happened under a set of conditions that you might never see again. So if you remember one thing, let it be this. One is not a sample size. One is a survivor, and survivors on their own tell you a dangerously incomplete story about reality. Okay, so how do we fight this? How do we protect ourselves? The solution actually comes from two places you might not expect: ancient philosophy and modern engineering. Together, they give us a blueprint for building a more robust, a more redundant mind. Now, when most people hear Stoicism, they think of this rigid, emotionless set of rules. But that's not what it is at all. At its heart, Stoicism is a method for finding the truth. The ancient Stoics would argue they'd borrow ideas from other schools of thought, they'd constantly refine their positions. Their loyalty wasn't to a single dogma, it was to getting the clearest possible picture of how the world actually works. Just like the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed." It's about being genuinely open to being wrong, refusing to let your ego lock you into one belief just because it felt good or it worked that one time. And we're going to pair that philosophical openness with a core principle from engineering: redundancy. Think about it. We never build critical systems like airplanes or power grids with a single point of failure. If one component breaks, a backup instantly takes over. The system doesn't crash. Your mind needs to be built the same way. Not just one strategy, but maybe a primary and a secondary. Not just focusing on one market, but being aware of what's happening in adjacent ones. Not just locked into one time frame, but having a higher one for context. And here's the big one: not relying on just one core belief about how everything works. Because here's the deal: a belief that you've put through a real stress test, a genuine challenge, that becomes a powerful tool in your arsenal. But a belief that has never been challenged, that isn't conviction. That's a blind spot. And all of this leads me to a final, very direct challenge for you. It's time for you to go find your own missing bullet holes. I want you to really think about this. Ask yourself this question: what is the one single belief that your entire approach, whether it's trading, business, whatever, is currently built on? What's the one thing you're absolutely sure is true? You got it in your head? Okay,
Now, for the next week, your only job is to try and break it. Genuinely. Actively look for evidence that proves it wrong. Argue against it. Find its limits. Find where it falls apart.
And here is the beautiful part of this. If, after all that, your belief survives the assault, you now hold it with real, earned conviction, not just blind faith. And if it breaks, well, you just saved yourself from a very, very expensive lesson the world was eventually going to teach you anyway. Either way, you win.